Hey everybody. It is a overcast, dreary day. It looks like it's going to rain. Actually, you know what it looks like? It looks like it's on the verge of snowing. But you know it's not going to snow because you know how for those of us who live in the north, and Marcus, you might remember this. You can almost like smell it in the air. It's like the air has almost a scent when you know it's going to start snowing. It doesn't have that scent yet. So even though it looks like it's going to snow and it feels like it's cold enough to snow, we're not going to get any snow yet. So, but I'm working here at the local dive bar. I've been working here quite a bit with all the commissions I have. That's the reason why I've this week, John Longbox, he had his Friday night show of Clobbering Time was uh, was unknown and forgotten villains, and I was like, oh, that's right up my alley because I love the unknown and forgotten villains. And I commented with one with the name of a villain called Steel Claw. He was like, "Come on the show," and I'm like, "I can't. I'm stacked up with commissions. In fact, right now as it stands, I have 3 commissions that have to be done by Christmas, and I've got 3 to 4 commissions after that that still need to be done. So just to give you an idea of like how much work I have, and this is where it always gets frustrating because you get all the you start working on a job in like I don't know, beginning of October, and you get 1 or 2 people. They say they're thinking about it, and I bluntly say, I go, look, if you want it, you got to give me the information and the money now, because I always require a deposit. I said, if you want me to do it and you're serious, you got to give it to me now. It always happens. I mean, even what's worse was I had 2 people come up to me in like August and about, oh, I'm thinking about it, and I said in August, I mean, it's going to be busy. So I have one of those jobs. Initially wanted it for Christmas, but when he finally came back to me in beginning of November, I just looked him dead in the eye and I go, "It won't be done for Christmas. I know you said you when I talked to you in August, you wanted it done for Christmas." I go, "It won't be done for Christmas." He's still ponying up the money and he still wants it done. It's just he knows that it's not going to be done for Christmas. So, yeah, I got a lot of work on I got a lot of work ahead of me. So, but I'm taking time out to work on this piece for you. One of the things that John mentioned about it was because I remember I was talking about this trim here, and I always thought it was going to be red, and he's like, no, 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 he wouldn't be red, he'd be blue. So this trim here that I've okay, it's all going to be a blue. So I'm thinking it's going to have to. My opinion is it should be like a light blue because that's what's the blue of choice for the uh, Revolutionary War, not the dark blue that was on the American flag. And that reason being is because you're going to want to have like a bluish gray in here, and maybe like slight purple in that gray, so that way this a bright blue will stand out. So that's how I'm looking with the color for the color theory of it. So, but with signed comics, we are in week 47. Last 2 weeks were all X-Men, and I probably could have gone another full week of X-Men, but I didn't. And the only thing is, I feel bad is that the one title I didn't get to really highlight and share titles with was the Avengers, and that was because at the very beginning, and I was just dedicating myself to only 6 or 7 DC and 6 or 7 Marvel. So I didn't get to really share a whole bunch of Avenger signed books. Maybe next year I'll do a whole week or 2 weeks of signed Avengers books, along with the daily postings of Star Wars, and then after that GI Joe for 2026. So, but yeah, we're in the last day of X Men. It was X Men, Uncanny X Men, I should say, 304, signed by Brandon Peterson. This was, remember, they had a series of X titles at this time that all had a holofoil card mounted on the front of the book. I got that's one of the reasons why I branded and signed this issue because I had the holofoil. Was it a gimmick? Yes, but I noticed that one thing was good about how they did the gimmicks for these X titles was they had something prominent happening with each book at this time. So this was where Magneto shows up and with his acolytes, and at the end of the conflict, Colossus leaves the X-Men for Magneto and his acolytes, which I always thought was kind of dumb. It didn't make any sense. Quite honestly, like I said, it made more sense for that little one-eyed cunt Cyclops to join Magneto. Even then, I know like years later we did the whole Phoenix thing. Uh, at the end of it, Cyclops turns and becomes a bad guy. Like I said, I always felt that Cyclops was a jackass of a character. He was a deadbeat father, and he cheated on his wife. So I just never cared for him as a character. So for me, it's one of those where it's like, yeah, so why do you have Colossus quitting the X-Men? Now, if they'd had it where it was much closer to the Mutant Massacre, with the changes that they were developing with with Colossus. Remember, he snapped Riptide's neck and killed him, and I was like, I mean, Wolverine was always the badass character. To have him do it, to have Colossus doing it, I was like, whoa. So, like I said, I would have felt that would have been much more of a closer to that period of time. It would make more sense. They'd really toned him back down, uh, back to the normal Peter self. So it didn't make any sense to me when they had him join the Acolytes at the end of issue 304. So, but X-Men in general were a little bit off the rails. So, and then we'll go into the other issues that have a hollow foil when we get into the X's, which is right around the corner. In fact, it's the first. I actually plotted it out, and the first week for December 1st starts the X's, and we pretty much have the X's going through the entire month until I think like the last week. I think it's like Christmas Day or the day before Christmas. We go back to the Y's, but otherwise we're going to have all X's for Xmas. So there we go. We have the X titles for Xmas. There you go. That. There's the tag for sharing it out. The first week of X. First week of X with X. So, but this week we're doing the V's, and of course, day 313 through day 316, we've got Vibe. Yes, this is a horrible title, but it's Vibe, my favorite character. And so I just had to get them signed. So, starting the very first issue I had signed was by Mark Irwin, which was issue 7. And so I had him sign issue 7, 8. At the time, I didn't know if I'd ever get any other titles signed by him. I thought I might eventually get Mark Fosher to do one of the other 2 issues of Vibe. But at the time, Mark Irwin was the very first one to sign. And then after Mark, I went to a show last year and they had Taylor Esposito there, and again, he did the lettering for issues 7, 8, and 9. So I had him sign this. So I had him sign it. So, and then of course, then this year, I had Wayne Foster sign the last 2 issues, 9 and 10. So very happy. Even though, like I said, even though I never defend this book that was a POS book. I mean, it's one of those where it's like, it's POS, but it's my favorite character. So you kind of, and we all do that. We'll have a book that like the story and the art was crap, but it's got our favorite character in it. So we're always going to give it some slack, and we'll always, instead of just outright attacking, this is a piece of shit book, da, 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 we're just like you sigh and go, this could have been so good. This could have been such a good book, but oh darn it. Well, maybe next time. But of course, I mean, I keep in mind, they have not done anything with Vibe since his disappearance at the end of Forever Evil. He hasn't shown up once, which is a shame. But I mean, it's one of those words like if you don't know what to do with a character, you shelve them. And I mean, you take a look, and that's the reason why, like, John was doing that, like forgotten villains. It's one of those where it's like there's a ton of villains out there that people forget about because really it comes down to if you don't have the creative team knowing what to do with a character, they're going to be shelved. I mean, a perfect example of a shelved character is Bengal. Uh, Fabian Nicasia, he came up with the idea of the Bengal, and he appeared in a one-ish standalone story. It was like an inventory story of Daredevil, which stood out because from the regular creative team, it was a completely different creative team. So it was definitely an inventory story to help the normal team get caught up. And he showed up in Daredevil, and then he showed up again in Marvel Presents. So in the first time he debuted, he was dealing with he was uh, uh, in contact and fighting Daredevil, and then the next time we see him was uh, uh, Marvel Presents fighting Red Wolf, which again Red Wolf's a really cool character, and nobody knows what to do with him. So so that's a perfect example. So Vibe, I figure eventually Vibe will show up eventually. I just hope that they have a team that brings him back, a creator that brings him back that really understands Vibe as a character and really has something to do with him. Because I thought of this also. Remember how I told you about my idea of a Vibe story involving Nightwing and involving that whole like car culture thing. And I thought about it. Another cool story with Vibe would be back when they had Batman's son and Superman's son when they're both kids. And you know how it is with kids when they did the Super Sons. And you know how it is with kids. You can tell the kids what the right they're trying to teach them, but because you're the parent, they don't want to listen to you. And I thought it would have been a cool story would be if Vi, the kids, let's say the kids are acting like, oh, this is so, we live in such an oppressed world and this and everything. Vi, and then they're not listening to their parents. So Vibe comes along and gives them, hey, you think things are bad? Here, I'll show you what's bad. And he gives them a tour of the multiverse using his abilities to, pierce that veil between dimensions. And they get a sense of like, this is the world where the crime syndicate is. This is the world where uh, all the where vampires have taken over. This is another, really taking a look at the really bad uh, not even all the bad ones, but just like just give them a taste of what the multiverse is really about, and then be like, hey, are things really bad where you live? And then like, no, actually, where we live is pretty cool. Thank you. And then like, he teaches them. Well, and it comes down to two things. Okay, Vibe is not necessarily an anti-hero, but he's a hero that doesn't have a problem with rubbing shoulders the wrong way. He doesn't have a problem with saying something or doing something that'll piss off like the heavyweights, like Batman, Superman. Because why? Because he has the attitude of you need to prove yourselves to me. I don't need to prove myself to you. And so at the end of the story, when the kids are like going off and like, there's a bank robber. Let's go stop it. This is a really cool world that we have, and we have these opportunities. And then like Superman and Batman are standing on top of a building watching as the two kids run off to foil this and they've learned their lesson and Batman and Superman are now standing with Vibe and like Superman, of course, reaches out his hand and thanks him his for what he did. And then, of course, the bigger thing is Batman. Batman also reaches out his hand, and Batman being Batman, he doesn't smile, but he says something. He says something to Vibe in the sense that you understand that Batman's laying a great compliment to Vibe and basically saying that I appreciate what you did for me and that you taught my son a lesson that he would not accept from me. Um, that is a big thing as a father is to be able to come to terms with the fact that you're not always going to be able to teach your son the lessons he needs, but you can only hope that if you can't teach him that lesson, that you have someone in your sphere of influence that will be able to teach him that lesson. And that would be the thing that I think would be the big thing about Batman would be Batman understands that Damian won't accept this advice from him, but he has a superhero who can teach him this lesson, and the result would be the same as if he were teaching him that lesson. So, like I said, that would be the important thing for me. Would be like the end where, like Batman reaches out, shakes his hand, and basically says something to that point that he's appreciative of what Vibe has done in teaching him a lesson he himself couldn't learn. Which then also shows that I guess my thing is everybody lately over the last I want to say 10, 15 years, they've treated Batman like he doesn't appreciate the efforts of the other heroes around him. And and the biggest thing I always look at is how he never liked Huntress getting involved with fighting criminals because of what happened to Barbara Gordon. But I look at it one of those deals where it's like having that type of thing where he reaches out and he shakes Vibe's hands. So he has to understand is that Batman has always been the type of person that because when he has to be the character who understands that there are other heroes in this world that are doing good, even if they're not doing things the way he does things. He has to appreciate that he's not alone in what he does. And I don't get a sense that they really relay that with Batman now. I think the worst is like how I think it was it Grant Morrison who did it where Batman had created a database on how to defeat all the superheroes if they went bad and he had it hidden. And I think it was like Ra's al Ghul uh, found it and stole it from him and used it. Um, I mean, I understand Batman being that way, but again, it's one of those where it's like there's a whole world of threats out there. He has to. Batman is severely naive to think that he's the only person that can handle these threats. So you have to have Batman in a way that he appreciates that there are others also that, through their own means, are wanting to prevent what happened to him as a child from happening to other people. So I think that's the biggest thing about Batman that I don't like in how he's currently being portrayed. Um, Marcus, John, Astro Zombie, what do you guys think? Phil? Hey, Phil, I'm drinking. Hey, Phil, I'm drinking my cherry Coke. It doesn't have a lime in it, but I am drinking my cherry Coke. Um, but tell me what you guys think. I mean, how off the mark am I in how Batman should? Because remember, the big thing about Batman is Batman. The intent of Batman has always been criminals should fear him, regular people shouldn't. So for me, it's one of those where it's like the way they're doing Batman now. It's one of those where it's like if he just swooped in to defeat a criminal, uh, everybody around him would be like, "Oh my God, Batman's gonna beat me up," and run away and treat Batman like a threat. I mean, that's never been what Batman is. So, no, you guys tell me. I'm not reading Batman anymore. I don't buy any of the books that he does. So you guys tell me if I'm off my rocker or not. So, and then of course we go from Vibe. We go to day 217, and we go with the Weird, done signed by uh, Jim Starlin, Bernie Wrightson, and Dan Green. This was my first introduction to Bernie's stuff. Everybody else, they go as much earlier stuff. I did not. And the only reason why I bought this book was because it had the Justice League International in it, and they were the hot title at the time. So whenever they showed up in another title, I snatched it up. So if they hadn't done this cover with Blue Beetle and Booster Gold and Dr. Fate on the cover, I probably wouldn't have bought this book, but I'm glad I did. And so, like, the very first time I met, the very first show I went to where all three guys were at it, I had all three of them sign this issue. So this is it's always for me. It's like I got the writer, I got the artist, and I got the inker. This is so cool, and it was a good story. It was a good story, and then he comes back to life, but he's got a limited amount of time left to uh, to live, and he knows it. So he first has to defeat the criminal, defeat the I guess the evil element that he's got to defeat that is developed at the same time he does. And then at the end, he's given like one final day to say goodbye to his son, and I like that. Uh, and that's all. And that's what the crux of the story really was giving, being given extraordinary powers, but you have a time limit, and you are going to die. What are you going to do with those final uh, hours and minutes left? Are you going to squander what's been given to you, or are you going to use that time to say goodbye to your loved ones and tell them how much you love them and you only hope for the best for them? That, for me, was the crux of the whole story. So to have it signed by all three of them, uh, like I said, it wasn't until later on I really just started to discover who Bernie was, and got the Frankenstein book and whatnot, and the reprint of all his eerie stuff, creepy and eerie stuff. But no, this was just my first introduction to him, and I always liked the story. That's the reason why I was like, when I first had the opportunity to meet Bernie at Baltimore, I had him sign this book. So, and then it just because Jim and Dan were at the same show, that's the reason why I had them sign at the same time also. So this was actually one of my first books that I got multiple signatures on the book. And then we go from there to World's Finest #3, with, of course, with uh, Superboy and Robin, signed by. It was a 2-issue prestige series, and it's signed by Carl Kessel, Tom Grummett, Scott Hanna. Uh, can't get Chuck Dixon to sign it because he doesn't do books shows anymore. But if he did, uh, the 3 issues of Skywolf and this issue of World's Finest 3, this would be the one I'd have him sign. So, and reason why I had him, I wanted to get all signatures from this one was this is where, okay, Superboy has been brought. We got a new Superboy, a new Robin, and of course it's always been like Batman and Superman always were buddies. This was the first time Tim Drake and Connor met each other, and of course they fight, and in the end they they appreciate each other and they shake hands, and it's actually the start of the new Robin Batman, or new Robin Superboy friendship that went on for so long. I mean, I always liked the Superboy Robin friendship back when they really pushed it to the forefront with first Young Justice, and then later on with the Teen Titans. So, uh, but no, just having what another thing also, the reason why I wanted this sign was I found it so humorous how Robin has the Lex Luthor kryptonite ring, and he has it in his lead box, and he pulls it out and he shows it to Superboy, and Superboy's like, "Yeah, that doesn't have anything to do. That doesn't affect me." And then he's saying like, "Oh, that kryptonite ring doesn't affect me at what?" And it didn't make it's just like it made him sick to his stomach, and he started throwing up. And I just liked how that whole thing. How it's like I just found that to be so humorous. How it's like because he's got Kryptonian in him, but he's not full Kryptonian. He doesn't get like weakness that'll kill him. It just makes him sick to his stomach. I just found that to be hilarious. So that's really the reasons why I wanted to have this sign is because of that. So I just thought that was really cool to show how like Superboy isn't full Kryptonian, but he does have a lot of Kryptonian power. So that a Kryptonite ring or Kryptonite in general affects him in a different way than Superman. So I just found that to be very entertaining and hilarious. So that's the reason why I wanted to uh, get these issues signed as opposed to others. So okay, guys, that's week 47. Uh, Next week is Thanksgiving. Maybe to get myself caught up, what I'll do is on Thanksgiving Day, I'll do day week 48, and that way when I do Saturday or Sunday's video, it'll be all caught up. So, but guys, you have a great day. You know I'm having a great day, and as always, take life one dot at a time. Oh, and go Steelers!